So for my project, I decided to focus on immigration in Sweden, and I specifically wanted to focus on the Syrian war happening right now, and how that actually affected Sweden and its policies. And so from the previous slide, you can see that Sweden is a country that's located in Northern Europe. It has Norway on its west and Denmark on its south. It is a member of the European Union. And on this slide, you can see that the government type is a parliamentary democracy, and that's basically just means that it's a democratic governance, which means it elects representatives to a legislative parliament, and these representatives are supposed to mirror the wants of the people that are in Sweden. And the total population of people within Sweden is 10.12 million people. It's also interesting to note that only 7 million of these people that are within Sweden are actually voters, or actually can vote. And the total religion, the national religion in Sweden there isn't any. So in the past, it was a Christian nation, but within the last couple of years, it has decided to be a separation of church and state. So there really isn't any clear and defined religion, but it just seems to be that the amount of people, or the majority of people that are from Sweden, happen to be Christian. So the first account I could see of the history of migration of Sweden was actually the Great Immigration of 1850 to 1939. So this was kind of a lot of people leaving Sweden and other Scandinavian nations, and even other nations in Europe, to states such as Canada and the US for search of things of like a better life, better economic opportunities. And so there wasn't anyone really entering Sweden at the time because the economy was good, but there wasn't anything keeping people there. However, it kind of did have that gold rush fever, as we studied in school, that people were leaving to the west coast of California, kind of that same thing of trying to find maybe the hope of something better. There was at that time a little bit of religious persecution, because people, either Catholics or Protestants of these nations, were just searching, since the United States at the time was a separation of church and state. So maybe they wouldn't be persecuted like they would be if they had stayed. So the next instance I could find of a big sweep of people either going or coming from Sweden was this. It was kind of dubbed the title of the Rise of Asylum Seekers in 1980 to 1999. And this was because of the turmoil that was going on in the Middle East, in countries like Iran and Iraq, with these wars that caused violence that was going around. So naturally, the people of these countries decided to flee. And at the time, there was a mass amount of people, around 1 million people, that were entering Sweden at the time, for hope of a better life, because Sweden has very kind of relaxed immigration laws. It's very liberalist in it, that it kind of goes off of the mutually beneficial cooperation, and that kind of adopting these citizens could actually really benefit them. And so, but at this time, because of the turmoil within the Middle East, there are top reasons such as they wanted to flee from repressive regimes, also, or even organizational groups such as ISIS. And they also wanted to look for better equality and human rights, and even better education. So lastly, the last big historical migration sweep I could really see from Sweden was due to the Iraq War, that was around the 21st century, and kind of EU migration, or people moving around the European Union, since the EU has put up laws in place that people who work in one state of the EU can also live and work in other states of the EU. So this caused a lot of people to move around, try to find better opportunities, since at this point it was easier to get access to these countries. And for some of the top reasons I could find, such as other reasons pointed out in the previous slide, people were either fleeing due to violence, or they were seeking asylum. They wanted to find better work opportunities, maybe hope for a better life. And also, Sweden at this point had really established itself economically, and people were really trying to find better education for themselves and for their children. And this was one way, was to go to Sweden, and maybe they also have healthcare put in place, and so that was another way to really draw people to actually go towards Sweden. So the only thing I could really find of current developments of immigrants coming into Sweden happened to be due to the Syrian war that is currently going on in the Middle East. So like other countries, so Sweden was actually declared one of the best countries for immigrants to go into, due to a wealth of different opportunities available to its citizens, such as education, healthcare, and so people fleeing Syria due to violence actually were kind of causing this huge influx to come into Sweden at this time. I think around 2015 was the height, and it showed around 1 million people coming into Sweden with not as many people leaving. But one of the big pushbacks I saw from Sweden was actually the integration of these immigrants into society. So once these immigrants are into the country, what do you do next? Do you want to immigrate them? How are they going to get healthcare? How are they going to get the education? Are they going to be just like other citizens? Or are there going to be other boundaries put in place? So that was one of the other issues I saw from people either in Sweden or other people in the EU, since if Sweden takes these people in, it does affect other states in the EU, since Sweden is one of the states in the EU. And Sweden, I saw, has a very strong liberalist view. So they don't really put a lot of impact on, they don't put a lot of importance on violence or maybe even national security. They do have a kind of optimistic and progressive view, and they do understand that conflict and war aren't inevitable, but they want to kind of lessen that as much as they can. And they really do focus on the happiness and contentment of individual humans. So this is really something interesting to focus on. So, secondly, another issue or kind of political stance that I found of Sweden by Sweden government, was in addition to integration into society, since they saw this huge influx of people coming into the country in 2015, they did decide to tighten up some of the border controls and not allow as many people entering into the country. They also did change in their asylum process. So people entering into Sweden, on the case of asylum, they did change that to make it harder for those people entering into the country just a little bit. They're still rated one of the best countries for immigrants to go into, but due to this influx over the past couple of years, with millions of people entering into the country, either legally or legally, it both does have an impact on the economy of these people living off of it. So Sweden did have to take a side and kind of slow down the process of people actually trying to integrate in society and go off of things such as education and healthcare. So lastly, for the future of immigration and what that has to do with Sweden, I kind of was looking at the 1 year standpoint and kind of saw that really 1 year doesn't really make a big difference for the amount of people going into Sweden or leaving Sweden. The process of political agendas, it's really, there's not a whole lot that can actually happen within that 1 year period. However, within the 5 year period, I do think that Sweden may become more strict with their border control, since the vast amount of people entering into Sweden may have a huge impact on the economy of the EU. And even more recently with the coronavirus, it may be having a bigger impact on the citizens, with the healthcare that's provided and the education that's provided to these citizens that the immigrants may or may not have access to. And I said that will the immigrants or the immigrant problem ever be resolved? And this is something that really, it's hard to tell because of, like I said on the previous slide, since the Syrian war, it's really hard to predict what the outcome of that will be and what impact that will have on other countries, or even the relationship of other countries and their relationship with Sweden. That is really hard to kind of predict those aspects. And so I do, however, think that Sweden will continue to adopt its liberalist view on international relations and how it views itself and other nations and the relationship between those. And because Sweden has, like the neighboring countries, it does have a very strong relationship with them. They do continue to be very optimistic about the policies that they enforce and the progress that they usually like to see and to push for through things like technology. They do find that mutually beneficial cooperation is very important. So actions such as taking immigrants can have a really good impact on the economy, such as like a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of nations. And so they really do think that they do really care about the happiness and contentment of the individuals in their society. So I do think that Sweden will continue to adopt this kind of liberalist view.